Okay, this is the 1 hour S4 overview or introduction to Fiori, and I'm going to be going through this for Vera Bradley, the purse maker. So there's a few customer specific slides, but it's really just template and background. So as an introduction today, we're going to go ahead and go over S4 overview, the experience that'll be different from a user perspective. We'll look at some of the improvements made compared to older ECCs and really focus in on how this is different for the accounting professional. We'll specifically go through this with a system demo focused around profitability as well as cash management. I'm going to leave a little time at the end of the session today for some Q&A. As I said, we'll start with an introduction, and I'll go first. My name's Max Shields. I'm a senior solutions engineer. I predominantly focus on the finance line of business. I've been using SAP for over 7 years, and I specialize again in finance, and my background more specifically is in treasury, cash management, and business planning. My 5 years or so outside of school where I've not been using SAP, I was using other various trading platforms focusing in on hedging and risk management for companies with high commodity focus. So that's really my background. As far as today goes, we're going to start out with a value of a good user experience. And quite frankly, good design, it goes a long way beyond just web pages or a customer perspective from a buying perspective. And there's real value behind the experience, both from a monetary and human perspective. And let's not kid ourselves, this is big business. Apple, Microsoft, they're constantly battling each other to find optimal ways to interact with their users. Most of us as users, we don't give a lot of credit to well-designed user interfaces. And truthfully, that's because if it's a bad user interface, we won't use it. I even was looking around at your guys' website and saw, hey, design and beauty is something that you guys really take importantly. That was right on your value and your mission statement. Here at Vera Bradley, we believe that beauty is to be celebrated in all we do. And we kind of break that up in two different ways at SAP when we talk about the user experience. First of all, there's monetary value and again, human value. In terms of money, we're really driving profitability by being more productive. A lot of our older screens and our old ECCs, you might need to navigate 6, 7 screens. All of that could be done in one screen now. With that, we're also improving data quality. A lot of that is because our system is so much more interconnected. You're going to notice this is a very intuitive system. With that, we're going to really reduce training costs, decrease change requests, and help eliminate user errors, or at least minimize those to our best of our ability. Outside of that, from the human value, this is a big deal as well. Glassdoor is becoming a very prevalent website in our society, especially for the younger population when they're deciding where they want to work. And user interface and user satisfaction really drives that. If you have a system that's very familiar, think Netflix or your iPhone or any tablet that you might use, we've leveraged a lot of our relationships with Apple and some of our other customers to make sure we can have a user interface that seems a lot like the interface you're going to use outside of work when you're at home playing, taking a cab. No one takes a cab anymore. It's kind of funny, actually. I remember when I first installed Uber, I was in Chicago at the time. Like I said, I was trading and doing hedge management back then, and someone said, hey, you gotta try Uber. It's just fantastic. And it was a rainy day, so you couldn't catch a cab in Chicago to save your life. So okay, well, I'll try to look it up and figure out how to do it. And they go, no, just download it. And honestly, as you probably know, you download the system, and that's really the hardest part. After that, it's very self-explanatory. A lot of what we're doing here today, it shouldn't need user manuals or standard operating procedures and the such to understand how to do the basic interactions. Another area that this really helped out is customer loyalty. You'll see if we do a more in-depth collection analysis, we're trying to make this more beneficial and less painful for people to pay you. So we always want to do that. And also strengthen the relationship between IT and business. And realistically, this comes down to a lot of our older systems, or our competitor systems, you had to do a lot of IT requests to get reports and data that you needed to drive your business. Now we can do a lot of that more self-serve. So here's a quick preview of the content. You're going to notice there's a Me area with, like your phone or tablet, easy to add settings, put a new app on, or edit your layout. Main content, this is designed to be a very clutter-free area. It's going to be configured for a role-based group. So as you see when I open up my screen, I've got it set up for a finance super user, so to speak. I've got an order to cash type layout. One of those groups you can see up here. We've got groups or grouping capability. You'll also notice on the right-hand side some notifications that'll pop up, and these can be dynamic with some embedded information as well as just a threshold set notification as well. What we try to do is make sure everything's role-based, so it's designed for your work data. It's going to guide you through your work and also give you some notifications or color coding, so it alerts you on what you should focus your day in. It's going to be simple. It's going to be adaptive. What we're talking about here, you can use it on your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, as well as your phone for simple tasks like approving notifications. With a tablet, you can get very, very in depth, just like you're on your computer. But it's adaptive across multiple devices, as well as coherent. You're not going to have to retrain people if they're switching around roles, maybe moving from AP to AR. That's a hard transition on some of the older software. Now it's very easy, very intuitive. 2 more slides, and then we'll move on to the software. The first thing I want to bring up that's somewhat technical, but we're definitely going to keep this high level, is most systems of yesterday were built around a transactional system. They had to have a lot of data warehousing, a lot of integration steps built in to make all of the transactional data into one place. Because of this, it made it virtually impossible to have your analytics built in. A lot of people went to a data warehouse, then added a data visualization group on top of that just to get the analytics that they need. Now, with improvements in memory technology specifically, we're able to store everything in one place, just a lot more powerful memory these days. Because of this, we now can have a real-time transaction go into the system. It hits our universal journal, which we'll get to if you don't know what that is. The universal journal gets updated regardless of what kind of transaction it is, AR, AP, profitability, treasury, so on and so forth. And right away, we have insight into that transaction with KPIs, reporting, any sort of analytics you want right in the same place. I mentioned the universal journal, and if there's one thing that's on the technical side that we discussed today that you walk out of here remembering, it's the universal journal. And that's really because it's the differentiator between us, or it's what allows the differentiation between us and all of our competitors. Again, going to the older ERP systems, in order to break up this transactional based environment and make it work in a quicker way, we had a lot of sub-tables, such as management accounting, financial, assets, so on and so forth, so that the system could just function and process in a reasonable amount of time, let alone get into reporting. As you guys probably know, if you're working with a SQL Server or something along that line, this requires a lot of integration built in or to be built out. It requires a lot of data warehousing, and again, all of this has to be done just to get to some of the analytics. Now we're simply storing everything, huge one line item, into the universal journal. Right now you can see I've got maybe 10 or I don't know, yeah, 10 items listed in the universal journal. It's much more thorough than that. The universal journal right now is 350 columns if you're thinking about it in terms of how data would get stored. So inside each line item, anything applicable across the universal journal would hit the universal journal in the appropriate column. So if it was a profitability entry or an entry that affected profitability, it would fill in those fields, or fixed assets, it would fill in those fields, so on and so forth. Ultimately, this creates a huge pivot table, which makes it very easy to do some more advanced reporting. So enough of slides, enough of the background information. I know you guys want to get into the system, so we'll go ahead and do that just to make sure we've done the introductions and the Fiori overview. So now we'll go ahead and go into the profitability and cash management. And these are a bit abbreviated. We're not getting into everything inside these topics of profitability or cash management, because we really want to give you guys that look and feel moment here instead. We can get more detailed down the road if that's something that's imperative for you guys, but we really want to just show off the system and show how nice it is to use. So I just opened up our demo environment, and you can see a few different things right now. Hopefully you're seeing the tiles, you're seeing some grouping, and then we've got some of the other bells and whistles that are really neat. Over here on the left is what we call Copilot, and this is quite simply just our integrated chat agent. And so you can see in here I've got some chats that are going with some of my peers in the finance team. And for example, I'm going to open up this one, and this is a little stale, but you can see a chat between myself and my boss saying, yeah, I just got this profitability notification. I'm visiting a client right now, but I can check shortly afterwards. And to which my boss replies, thanks, but can I get profitability reported a few different ways? Can I get not just our over enterprise-wide profitability, I want that, of course, but also our customer profitability, and then can I actually see all the products that were sold to them, as well as which products were more profitable? And then actually, can you also just run a list of sales orders that's in there, and profitability by all those? So right now that's probably a pretty big ask, even though it's a fairly simple question. She can ask it in 3 lines. That could take a lot of time to report on. We'll focus in on that to start out with. But one other thing with the Copilot tool, you can see I've got some notes in here from myself. I can also have the chats as we've discussed with multiple different people, or you can just use it for little notes to yourself, like go buy dog food, that kind of stuff. So it's really set up to be something that can be used across the entire enterprise, and it really is neat because it also stores these linkable invoices or linkable screens. So you can see right here, not only are we able to store a snapshot, but you can actually drill back into that actual snapshot and open the screen that the individual sent me over. So that's really cool. That's Copilot again. It launches right from up here. You can also see a few things. This is our enterprise-wide search agent. Really cool. I can, for example, type in EV. That's one of our customers. And it'll search all sorts of stuff. And in this case, EV Parts is one of my customers, and I work with them quite a bit when I'm doing my demo system. But if it wasn't, maybe what else could it be? Here's some tiles with evaluation, or some actual invoices and contracts and POs that are just from EV. So you can see this is very much a Google-like enterprise-wide search. Again, taking advantage of some of our partners there and building in some of the best things of what we see out there with our partners today. The last thing I'll show you before I dive into this profitability vignette is the alert section or notification section. And right now those are coming up with different thresholds, and that's something that's very intuitive. I probably don't have to describe it to you, but it is quite cool in the sense that we are able to set these notifications up in a different way. So in this case, I got one last night that said, cash alert, please review your cash versus your discount rate. So we're going to do that a little bit later on, but we're setting up thresholds that are giving us notifications overnight or midday to check out what's important to us for running our business. A little less important is in yellow or amber or orange, depending on how you guys look at stuff. And last thing I would do is tell people who are in discretionary, consumer discretionary, what color this is. But to me, it's amber. Here's purchase requests are pending, or purchase orders need to be released. And these are workflows that we have built into our system, much like you guys are probably taking advantage of in ECC 6 right now. And finally, at our lower threshold of importance, not as urgent, is a timesheet. So we can also be using this for HR management and whatnot. So a lot of things that are very easy to get at and in terms of keeping you on task. As I scroll through, you can see I've got my home. So these might be my most recent or most common transaction codes that I need to get into, or apps that we're calling them now. You can see we've built this into real feeds. This is just because we are a HTML5 programmed uh, platform, so we can build in and interrelate with a lot of other groups very easily. In this case, we're bringing in an RSS feed from the New York Times, but this can obviously be applied to a a company alert setup if you guys want to run your own headlines or anything else you'd be interested in doing there. And as I mentioned earlier, this is role-based. So in this case, I've got a whole section that's set up for the order to cash and ultimately profitability. Or you can see down here with a few of our interactive tiles or KPIs, some of the threshold limits that are coming up for our accounts receivable department. So in this case, I've got days sales outstanding coming up in a orange or amber because it's in between our thresholds, as opposed to my collection progress on the day. As I've been prepping for this demo, I haven't been going through and making my collections that are in the demo system. So that's in red. I need to do a little better than 0%. That's not quite meeting my day's objectives. Or promises to pay being in green. So you can see in this case, we've got that under the threshold. One of the other things you might notice is I've got two different collection progresses. So these tiles are very customizable. So in this case, I created a separate tile just for my customers versus our overall progress on the day. And we're a group of solution engineers, so we're not necessarily getting to the collections progress. So no one's been doing much work on this today. So you can see I've got my own set just for my customers. So for you guys, you might want to do this in another area where you are looking at collections by region, or maybe collections by company code, or a country even. And that way you could be able to keep up to date by different ways of slicing your business up, slicing and dicing your business up, so you can really focus in on what's important. So it's a little bit of an overview. I'll scroll down a little bit more. You can see I generally set mine up. So I've got my processes. In this case, it's procure to pay. And then down below that, I've got my KPI tiles as far as my accounts payable. And again, these are all completely personalizable, so you can do whatever makes the most sense for you. We'll spend some more time down here later on in the day looking at some cash optimization. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview on this. In terms of navigation, I can simply use my scroller wheel, or I can click on any of the top buttons. Those are all active links, or use this side drop-down bar. So kind of user preferences there. In terms of the order to cash to profitability process, we aren't going to go through the sales order, billing, shipping, that whole process. We could do that with a little more time, but what we're going to focus on is some of these dashboards and as well as analysis for Office, if you guys have heard about this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this real-time profitability dashboard, and this is loading for just a bit. But keep in mind, what it's doing right now is it's going into the database, and it just pulled up our entire database for 2017, 18. I think we have a few years in here, 16, 17, and 18. You can set those thresholds. So whatever's most applicable. Since we're early in the year, I'll do 2017 and 2018. But this is across our entire company, and it's looking at our entire operating enterprise-wide profitability. In this case, right now, we're only operating in 2 countries. So if I scroll over, you can see profitability in Canada versus the US. Obviously, if this was an international company outside of those locations like you guys are, there'd be more countries filled in. But this is interactive as well. So just one click in here, and now we're looking at profitability in the US. So I'm from Colorado. Here's my home state's profitability. It looks like Michigan's doing well. We can scroll over that and see their profitability, as well as maybe what's it looking like in Chicago, and so on and so forth. So very easy to get that state-by-state profitability. You'll see down lower, we have revenue by product line. In this case, these are just definitions that we put in. You could customize this if you wanted to look at profitability by product line as opposed to revenue. In this case, we chose revenue. If that's a little hard to see, understandable, go ahead and click the expand button and all of a sudden you can see that full screen. So profitability across our segments, and you can see, or sorry, revenue across our all of our segments, and you can see in this case our demo system sells bikes. So now I've got my revenue by cruiser bike, mountain bike, racing bike, and youth bike. Very cool. So for you guys, you might be looking at, bags, fragrances, accessories, home. That would be what would populate there as you define it in your master data. Or maybe I want to look at product line profitability. Just how great is it to be able to see this kind of information all visualized for you? In this case, wow, there's a huge dip in youth profitability. Well, why is that? In this case, we run a special every year as we head into the spring where we start selling kids' bikes at a loss. And we do that because there's higher profitability or higher amounts of revenue available for our other lines. So, sell mom a mountain bike because she's coming in to shop for a kid's bike on a really good sale. Strategically, that makes a lot of sense to us. But man, isn't it nice to be able to verify our sales strategies with our actual results and be able to do that visually. I know some of you in the crowd are probably thinking, yeah, this is cool, but I'd rather do it in Excel. Don't worry, we're going to get to that. That's definitely all available, but this is just some of the embedded analytics that we're able to see with that analytic layer built into our transactions. And keep in mind, this is all real time. So if I put in a sales order in that order ship bill process and open this up, it would be there right away, which I could do if we'd like to see, but I think time-wise we're probably a little short on that. You can see I can sort this in different ways, product line or product, by customer. So I got that notification from my boss, if you remember, that said, hey, Matt, can you look at this specific customer, which, in this demo environment, we all have our own customer. Mine is Max Neat Bikes. And now I'm seeing my profitability and revenue and sales statistics all just for Max Neat Bikes. And as I mentioned, we can get very granular on this. If I wanted to look at all of my sales order level profitability, I could simply select one of these and show that, and all our analytics would change. In this case, it looks like I sold a mountain bike and some mountain bikes and some youth bikes on this sales order overall. So very cool. This is our dashboard. Any questions on that before we move into our analysis for Office, which generally speaking gets people to feel a little more comfortable because everyone loves Excel, especially if you're talking to accountants in the accounting department, and they want to make sure that doesn't go away. So sorry, I clicked that a little quick. In this case, I had just been looking at my real-time profitability dashboard, and that's this analysis tab or tile, excuse me. You can rename these to anything that makes sense to you. And in this case, I'm going to open up my profitability analysis in Analysis for Office. So when this opens up, again, this is just a portal into our S4 finance database. We're not actually working with numbers that are saved in Excel. This is all real time. So again, if I put in that sales order, it would hit the Universal Journal. It would get sorted to the appropriate, what previously was tables. Now it's just all in one place, and I can perform the analytics because I'm pointing this Excel workbook to look right at that database. So no SQL servers, no batch processes, no reconciliations at the end of the month before you can get these numbers. This is just ready to go. All of the other Excel functionality is still available. We just added in this analysis layer, and we're going to go ahead and take a peek at that. So you can see right now, I set up a workbook that has our profitability, operating profitability, like you would expect in a P&L, 2018, 2017, and our variance column over here. All of these are pretty easy to define, and we pulled that information over in the workbook and defined that workbook before we got started. You can see in here one of the things that's really great. We were able to capture all our COGS at a very detailed level, not just COGS in general, which is hard for a lot of companies to run, but we get material, labor, and overhead. And further, if you want to expand that out, you can see all the sub-levels of COGS that are involved. So I opened up the material, and you can see we've got a lot of information to really capture what helps us to run our business from a managerial reporting perspective. Obviously, if that's more detailed than you need, you wouldn't have to use it. But that information is there so you can capture your company's profitability and management as is best for you. So just a little bit of how this works. Again, we got that notification when we started off the day that said, hey, can you do profitability? Well, great. Here's a quick profitability report. If they said, I don't want it for 2018, 2017, just focus in on 2018. I'm going to double click 2018 and we're automatically sorted. So, here you go. Here's your profitability numbers, and you tell me the granularity, and I can define it out to the level of granularity that you'd like. So in this case, I've expanded it out, but if I wanted to expand it out further, I could. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. In this case, I've got it expanded out to level 5. If I wanted to expand it out to level 6, 7, 8, I could do that as well and make it that more detailed view. But on a level, too much detail gets a little hard, so we're going to keep it right here. Other things we can do. Now let's start analyzing profitability by a few different metrics. In this case, my boss asked me to look at profitability by customer. So I will run profitability by customer. If she wanted all of that information or every customer, I could do that. For those of you who are comfortable with Excel, I'm doing a simple Control F to do a find. And here's my customer that I was looking at, Max Neat Bikes. And right now, if I was trying to deliver that profitability report just for Max Neat Bikes, here you go. Very neat. More detail. Let's look at this other ways. My wife's in energy. She works for an energy provider here in Colorado. For them, profitability by plant is the holy grail of what they're trying to figure out in terms of how do they run their business, because there's so many moving parts in terms of regulation and how does a coal plant do in terms of profitability versus an electric plant, a hydro plant? What kind of subsidies do you need to make the company work? That is very difficult analysis. With our project, all you would do is slide over plant, and now you can have that high level plant-specific profitability report, so you could answer some of those questions that would be super difficult without this kind of universal journal in place. For you guys, it might be more product-driven. So let's go ahead and look at our products by customer. And again, this is our, my bike. This is a commuter bike. The C denotes commuter bikes, and M's are for mountain bikes, and R's are for racing bikes. So right here, I could look at my individual product lines. If I wanted to do it by segment, in terms of saying, hey, group these R's together and the M's together for racing and mountain bikes like we saw earlier. Very easy to do by using the segment supply instead. So for you guys, that would be, your bags and your accessories. Now I've got it at products. So you could say, hey, how does the Veritote do versus all of our other products? Is that the most profitable? Where do we want to put our marketing money at? Those kinds of questions are so hard to figure out with most companies in terms of not being able to pull these reports in varied ways. Now we can do that. Let's take it another step further. Let's do it by the sales order. So now we're getting really granular. And remember where we started today. We started at that enterprise-wide profitability. We cut it down to customer. Now we're looking at product. And now we're seeing it by sales order. So I could compare how well did I sell my MCM1 bike on all these sales orders? Is there anything fishy? Is there anything that stands out? That kind of question. Maybe that's not the way you want to look at it. You want to actually look at it at which sales order was the most profitable and what items or what products were put on those sales order. A simple drag and drop was able to shift how we looked at those two pieces of information. Again, very difficult for a lot of companies to do that. And the final thing I want to point out is like I said, this is all an interconnected system. So I can see not just my analysis or my analytical layer, it also is embedded and connected to our transactional layer. So when I pull over my document number, something really cool comes up. I have the ability to come in and select any of the documents, right click, collect my go-to, and I can now pull up my actual document. In this case, I did not set my defaults to the right web server. So let me pause while I do that. So you can see this is now opening up the actual transaction layer that we saw earlier that defines all the information that's in here. In this case, I am looking at the sales order because it's just the sales. You can see the related documents in this case would be our expenses, both externally, the materials, and then also internally, the labor and overhead. So depending which one I open, it would open the appropriate page. I'm going to try that. Oops. I'm going to try that one more time and select the most recent one as well as the final document. See if this is working. So this takes a little bit to load up. That's a little slower than normal. But in this case, you could see now all of the information right linked out of Excel or Analysis for Office. In this case, we can see inventory changes with COGS, all of our direct overhead personnel COGS as you would expect, as well as the related documents. So this is really cool. You're probably familiar with this using SAP. So as we said, that order to cash or order to cash to profitability cycle where you're doing the order, the shipping, the billing, as well as any controlling or workflow items that are created during that process, all of that is connected through what we call related documents. And you can see those all here, as well as drill right back into them. Again, this is the advantage of an interconnected system. So now I could bring up what is my actual sales order, who put it in, what was the date, all of that information, as well as who are the business partners involved, who did we ship to, sell to, pay, bill, all of that, as well as down here that visualization layer that is really unique to S4. Here we can see order, ship, bill. Now it's in accounting, waited to be posted or waiting to be paid upon. All of this is getting highlighted in a similar traffic lighting to our KPIs earlier on the KPI tiles. If one of them was in error, we can link right into here and solve that issue. For example, if a credit check bounces or we run out of inventory, we should get those warnings in real time, but we can also link right back into them here and fix those issues as they come up. So very, very neat there. So that's a little bit of an overview on profitability. Are there any questions before I move into a little bit of a cash optimization demonstration that really focuses in on some of these tiles? Great. So we'll move on to our an abbreviated cash optimization. And you can see there's a lot of neat stuff in here. We can look at bank risk, and in this case we've got red. So there's some bank that we have more of a we have more credit at one institution than we define as reasonable. So it's highlighting that to us. You can also see some of the key drivers to an accounts payable department, like what is our DPO, days payable outstanding. In this case, it's in orange. It's at 19.5. We are trying to push out our days payable outstanding to maximize cash flow. So it's not at that 20-day cycle that we'd like it to be. So it's encouraging us to take those extra steps to get it at the level we'd like to, and it's letting us know by putting it in orange. I mentioned earlier, I believe, cash discounts in red. So in this case, we want our cash discount utilization over 30%. At 25%, it would move to amber, and in this case, it's red. So we have those thresholds here. Those are obviously dynamic. You can set those not only as a department, but you could create a individual tile that you can set your own threshold on if you're allowed to with the user governance that would be put in place. So some groups like to let people say you can define your own thresholds for such things as your particular suppliers that you manage. Other groups don't like that. So that's an option to keep in mind. So one of the things I just want to pause and show is some of the information we can get just from the home screen. Without really doing any analysis or digging into anything, we can really understand our cash position from this accounts payable perspective. So in this case, I've got $1.39 billion of cash on hand. Isn't it nice to be a demo system? That is a lot of money floating around for us to play with. Obviously, that's a lot of cash, so that's in our green. So we know we have cash because it's in green. Obviously, the numbers represented there as well. Really easy to understand. There's a lot of money available. And that would bring up a question when you look at this cash discount utilization. Why are we in red there? How come we aren't at least in orange? And really, shouldn't we be in green? We've got a lot of cash. Is there discounting we can do? Are we wanting to look at dynamic discounting? Maybe try to push some of our suppliers or our vendors to update some of our terms because we have a lot of cash and we're not really taking advantage of some of the discounts at hand. All of this information can get brought together right away without having to drill into tiles. If we wanted to look at it more, I could look at my cash discount forecast, which discounts I've got available. In this case, I'm looking at it by company code. I can see all my available cash discounts. You can see the tile over here that shows us what's out there, what's available, what's expired, what did we just miss on, and how much is expiring in the next 1 month. All of this is very useful information considering we've got so much cash on hand. One of the things you're going to notice as we get into these tiles is they're very dynamic. If I wanted to look at this by payment terms, that was an option. In this case, I just grabbed by supplier. So if I wanted to say, who is out there that I could make some payments to, I could look at it by this way. I could also look at it, like I said, by payment terms. In this case, if I wanted to do a little enterprise search, I could start typing in my supplier that I focus my business with, pull that individual up, and now I can see it more granularly in terms of, hey, let's make a payment. Let's look at this supplier in a little bit more detail. Maybe you want to manage those supplier line items. We've got the right links set up, the natural next steps that you'd want to be taking. I can now look at all my supplier line items, click an item, review any of these items. As you've seen previously, all of these blue hyperlinks let you go right back into the journal entries or in this case bills that we'd be looking at, and you could make a payment right here in the same system. So you're not jumping in between 8 different systems. You're able to do your business the way you would think you'd need to. If you want to understand what cash position looks like a little bit more, you can go ahead and drill into that cash position. In this case, I have it defaulting by bank country. SAP is a German company, if you didn't know that. So most of our make-believe demo money is sitting over in Germany, and we've also got quite a bit in the US and for some reason in Greece. I guess we have some employees over there that like to keep that bank account high. If you wanted to look at it by company code, if you guys segregate your business by company code, you could do that and look at that quite quickly. My favorite view is by bank and by currency. So as I mentioned earlier, I was in trading, and the first thing I did every day was get my clerk to come with a summarized view of where all of our account positions were. And so when I look at this and I think about how effective this is just an absolute dream to not have to do all the manual work of getting all of your bank statements reconciled, dragging and dropping, doing some manual manipulation of Excel files so we could make sure we had sufficient capital in each account to work through the day. In this case, I can look at it by any number of degrees, by bank, by currency, again, all the different options, just with simple clicks. What's more, if there's not enough money, let's say Wells Fargo's my main disbursement account, and we're coming up on travel and expense payments, and Wells Fargo is where I mainly do that. I can see up here, again, Wells Fargo's under my comfort zone of $10 million. Be forgiving on these numbers. Obviously, they're we're in a demo system, but let's say I wanted to be over $10 million in that account, and I needed to transfer some money in. Again, I don't have to go in between 10 different accounts. I could simply come in, uh, search for my account. In this case, I'm wanting to do the Wells or JP Morgan to Wells Fargo account. We've obviously got a lot of money in there. It understands or is making an intuitive guess on which account I'm looking for, but you can see all the other ones as well. So my European, my Euro dollar, JP Morgan account, as well as some accounts that have Japanese yen, and then you scroll down and you can even see, this account, which why did that search on JP? It's not in yens. It doesn't look like it's JP anything. Well, it's actually because it's JP is in the Japanese characters. So we even have it down to that smart of a search. That being said, it knew which one we were looking for. We didn't have to do a lot of manual intervention. In this case, I could make a transfer, put in my amount just like you would do on a any sort of personal account. Make credit transfers, ACHs, or in this case, we can do it right through Fiori. I can go ahead and bring this up and transfer, I don't know, $1 million, make bank transfer, and submit. What else can we look at? The final thing I want to show you guys is our liquidity forecast. This is really cool, and I think it's probably what highlights, at least for someone who used to be in cash management, how powerful this tool is and the interconnectedness of it all. So in this case, I opened up my liquidity forecast, and you can see scrolling out for a few month or two. I think it's 90 days is our set default, but all of that is definable by these filters, as you're probably able to guess. What does my cash closing balance look like from a projective point of view going out for the next X days? I can also see my cash flow, so my net ins, my net outs. Of course, we've got a little more net in. That's why our cash closing balance is going up. This is a really powerful tool to make some managerial decisions. If this was going the other way, we'd be wanting to make a very different decision in terms of running our business than with this current profile. Maybe I want to look at it a little differently. Again, we can slice and dice by almost any way you'd like to. We're now looking at all of our cash flow by liquidity items, or, for simple perspective, where are the buckets of money coming and going? In this case, we've got some cash payments going out, or sorry, coming in. Sales orders, you can see it by sales domestic. Receivables, you can see a little money is going out for some personnel, so maybe that travel and expense, marketing, so on and so forth. But all of the buckets of cash movement for the entire company, all within a real-time environment. You can even get a little more granular. In this case, I just pulled open all of those buckets, and I want to look at all of the cash coming in and going out over the next quarter. This is enterprise-wide. This is thousands, if not millions, of transactions, all able to be pulled up that quickly. Maybe that's too much information for me to digest, and I just want to focus in on my business. In this case, I've saved a variant for max cash transactions. So these are all the transactions that quote unquote I've touched according to my employee number or my login ID. And this is all of the cash coming and going the way I'd like to be set up. For those of you who have used SAP in the past, this is being saved down as a variant, so that idea has not gone away. We do have the ability to do that throughout all of our tiles here still. And the final note is, again, all of these transactions are interrelated, so if I wanted to look into it, get some more information, I can simply click the button, see more information, who put it in. Again, this is mine, so I put it in, I know that, but here's, this looks to be a cash coming in from a sales order that I created. And if I was curious to learn more, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm the treasurer and I've got concerns about some specific items, I could be drilling into all of this down to the original journal entry view, as well as get all of the related documents supporting this journal entry right from this one unified user experience. So an extremely powerful way to solve your problems instead of having to run batch reports at the end of the week or the month or the quarter just to get some reports to analyze and understand our business, make those critical decisions that are driving a more strategic approach to our business. Now we're just logging in to one user experience. Doesn't matter if I'm in treasury, AR, AP, order to cash, any of these business cycles, the way you like to look at your business, all of them have that same user experience. You can shift through anything that you have access to. Again, it's role-based, so we do have a high security premium. You don't have to worry about people getting to places they shouldn't, such as AR should probably not be able to initiate those bank transfers. Again, someone who's initiating a bank transfer should not be able to approve it. All of that's built in. You're not losing any of those security concerns. But for this super user that I have access to just because of my job role of being able to show all aspects of finance, you can see just how easy it is to move within the country, within the software and handle any issue that you might be able to, and really have that quick view of analysis from a KPI tile with a threshold indicator to give you that beacon to know where your workday should go. Drill down into it, solve any problems you need to, do the research because everything's connected, and then go ahead and take the actions you need. So that was a cash management vignette. Hopefully that was interesting. We've now gone through profitability, cash management. In these next 15 minutes, I just want to have open for Q&A. If you just want to let me scroll through if you want me to, some customers like to just scroll through the profile just to see what I've got on there. Others want to see something in particular, but I wanted to leave these 15 minutes for you guys to ask any questions about the user experience, the finance side of it, the technical side, really whatever fits best for you guys. So I'll open the floor there. Great. Thank you for those questions. Here's my contact info. I appreciate you guys spending the time. And if you need to ask a technical question or a finance-related question, please reach out to me. A lot of our AEs prefer you to reach out to them, but I just want to be able to put my information up so you can CC me on those questions, and we can make sure you guys get all those questions answered. Thank you.